fable about the Grinch, who was quite unable to steal the cheer when the holidays brought, and about the lessons that he was taught.
But if you'll lend me a year or two, I'll tell you a similar story that's new. It's about a man who commits a crime, but discovers the truth that's older than time.
It's the prime example of intellectual snobbery, and what became known as the Great Church Robbery.
The church was known for its love and affection. Folks were invited from every direction. But one neighbor, named Mr. DeWitt, their invitations didn't matter one bit.
DeWitt hated them, and for their Christian religion, he held no love, not even a smitten. He considered their pastor to be a big fake, and their clanging church bells made his head ache. Though he felt that way, not because of his head, but the fact that his soul was spiritually dead. So with a heart full of meanness and doubt, he watched Sunday morning as their service let out, staring out of his window with a cold, ugly sneer at their warm handshakes and smiles full of cheer.
They'll all be returning,
He said with a bark.
for the church service when it gets dark. They'll come from everywhere and raise such a commotion. Where does it come from? I haven't a notion. They'll get that big church bell to ringing, and then they'll start praying and singing. Then they'll pound the piano and the organ too. Where does it come from? I haven't a clue. For years I've put up with this stuff. It's driving me crazy. I've had quite enough.
As he got angry thinking of how he would do it, he suddenly snapped.
I must put a stop to it. I'll take their Christmas things,
He went on with a growl.
and then their joy will become most foul.
Then a wicked idea hit his wicked little brain.
I'll pretend I'm a blind man with dark glasses and cane. I'll steal all their things, and then if anyone spies me, well, in this clever disguise, they won't recognize me.
Yes, he felt quite proud and thought himself wise, so armed with a plan and a tricky disguise, he cranked up his pickup and took off with a lurch and pulled it up to the back door of the church.
Determined that at his entrance nothing would block, he used a screwdriver to jimmy the lock.
This is too easy.
The big blind man hissed and tiptoed aside, cane clenched in his fist, then lowered his glasses and peered all around to make sure there was no one there to be found.
These speakers
He said,
are the first things I'll pluck.
as he loaded them into his old ratty truck. He ripped up and threw out the pads on the pews. Yes, he took every comfort and instruments too.
Then he carried the psalm book as all he could have, and even the Bible was not above that. When he had taken all he could rob, he was turning to go, when he heard a small sob grabbing his cane. He spun around to the world, and there stood by the altar a tiny young girl.
Who's there?
He asked while tapping the cane.
I'm sorry, I'm quite blind, and I don't know your name.
My daddy's the pastor, and I'm Mary Sue.
Then with trembling voice she asked,
Who are you?
Just a friend.
he said,
No need to fear.
as he motioned the little girl to draw near. DeWitt faked a smile and kneeled down beside her. And when she smiled back, the room somehow seemed brighter.
You see,
He lied.
God sent me indeed, for even a blind man can see you're in need. These old things I will take and bring back new, and when I'm finished, it will all come back to you.
So he pulled the wool over her eyes, and his slightless act and clever lies, and he mockingly patted her head. But he was taken aback at the next thing she said.
Oh, kind sir, I wonder if you might, pray to the Lord that he give you your sight.
And before he could answer or move out of the way, she laid her small hands on his brow to pray.
Dear Jesus, I thank you for being so kind, and I ask you touch this man who is blind. Bring him the light to his eyes and help him to see, so give him this gift, and Lord, do it for me.
And then she had finished. His throat was all dry, and behind his dark glasses a tear dimmed in his eye, and conviction had fallen on him like a great weight, but he croaked,
Thanks, dearie, but now I'll be late. Please go home and don't say a word, and don't tell anybody what you have heard.
and as he watched the pastor's trolley depart, he felt a strange tug down deep in his heart. But he shook it off with a snort and a shrug, and as he was leaving, he threw out the rug. It was 6:30. Soon the church would be full, so he cranked up the pickup, and away he did pull. Up the winding dirt road to the top of the hill, he drove their stuff, which then he would spill.
When he came to the top, it was getting quite dark. As he drove toward the cliff and put it in park, he jumped out of the truck and strode to the ledge, and stood looking expectantly over the edge.
They all know by now
He said with a grin.
that their church service has been done in. Why, they'll all start to moan and wail. And that's something I wish, perhaps, I could hear.
Said DeWitt.
But he could hear a sound, quite low, and breaking up from the church in the valley below. But this sound wasn't tearful. Why, it sounded quite cheerful. Everyone, to the smallest fella, was singing their favorite songs, a cappella. He hadn't stolen their joy, it remained. In spite of their losses, they worshipped the same.
Perhaps their joy doesn't come from what's done. Perhaps
He smiled.
it comes from someone.
But suddenly his heart was clutched with cold fear as he noticed the pickup had slipped out of gear. It rolled toward the cliff edge, that rusty old clunker, as he leaped in its path and shoved hard on the bumper. But it didn't slow down, though his feet plowed the sod, and for the first time in his life, DeWitt prayed out to God.
Lord, please forgive me these Christmas things I did take. Save them, and me too, for Jesus' sake.
And then the light of heaven shone in as Mr. DeWitt was born again, and he felt a strange power he'd not felt before as he found the strength of Samson and more. He stopped that old truck and turned it around. Then he hopped up inside and drove down to the town. He pulled up at the church and brought back what he took, each musical instrument and every song book. Then he went to the altar, and beside it he knelt, as he praised the Lord Jesus for the peace he now felt. And he hugged Mary Sue as she climbed